For this assignment, we're going to continue working on performing operations by using formulas and functions. And to start with, make sure that you have downloaded the file S10 Wendy's for this spreadsheet. And one of the things that we're going to be doing here is when you're looking at performing functions, think about what the question asks. So like sales revenue or total revenue, that would be a sum function. So if you see down here on the right, we have sales revenue by summary, you have sales revenue, that would be a sum function. Number of franchises, that would be a count function. And obviously average sales would be an average function. Now, different than what we've done in the past, you can see that we want sales revenue by state and number of franchises by the state and the average sales by state. So instead of a sum function, a count function, and an average function, this is a SUMIF function, this is a COUNTIF function, and this is an AVERAGEIF function, meaning that on the ifs, that it has a condition to it besides just doing the counting. But we're going to start with this. We're going to practice a little bit, things that we've done in the past. So we're going to sort this spreadsheet. Notice we have Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico. We're going to sort this spreadsheet first by state, then by city, then by revenue, largest to smallest in the single sort. So if you remember that, we can go here to the data tab, go over here to sort. Okay, we're going to sort by column. We're going to sort by first. We're going to sort by state, and we're going to go A to Z. We're going to add a level. Then we're going to sort by city. Okay, and then we're at A to Z, and then we're going to sort by, we want revenue. Okay, sales revenue. We don't want to add the sales tax there because we have to pay that back. So we're going to do that, but we're going to switch this from smallest to largest to smallest, and go ahead and click OK. And now we have our data sorted. So you have Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, Denver, New Mexico, Santa Fe, and Wyoming, Cheyenne. So that's completed part one of this. Part two is we're going to be using the if function. So starting in I3, we're going to do this right here. We're going to do a different type of if function, not like a SUMIF or that. So we're going to create a function that will display the word yes in the franchise if the franchise will receive an invite to the annual awards ceremony. And if they don't receive an invite, we want it to leave it blank. Okay, we don't want it to say false or no, we just want to leave it blank. And they will get their invitation if their sales revenue, the revenue in column D, is greater than the sales revenue target, which is in row 2, column K and L. So you have the sales revenue target there in column K, cell K2, and then you actually have, they have to be greater than or equal to $375,000. And you are going to have a question like this on your exam. So, you know, we're looking at the value in column D is it's got to be greater than or equal to the target revenue in cell L2. Okay, and for simplicity reasons, we've already named the cell in L2, already has a named range, and so we will use that in its sales revenue target. So we're going to use that named range, and that will just make it simple. We can always point to it, but we name the range for you. So we're going to start in cell I3. So go ahead and our function is equals if, and we're going to go ahead and grab the if, and it's asking for our logical test. Okay, so our logical test, and we're going to come here, and I'm going to use this insert function bar just as a help for you. So our logical test is the sales revenue of D3 has to be greater than or equal to, okay, and in this case, the 375,000, okay, and now it actually put in, and the reason why we have that put in as sales revenue target, and it did it for us, is because we've locked that cell. If not, when we copy down, the cells would copy down there, and we don't want it to copy down. We want it to always point back to that. And our argument is if the revenue in column D is greater than 375,000 or equal to, we want it to display the word yes. And you will have to do something like this on your exam. If false, if we don't put anything in here, we will actually get the word false to fill down in column I. We don't want to because the question asks us to leave it blank. We could always type in a no, but that's not the answer. Now, it could be on your exam. It's yes if true and no if false. Or sometimes it'll say yes if true and blank if false. Leave it blank. And so to leave it blank, you would just put in two quotes, meaning nothing's going in there. It also means that false isn't going to be said in there. And we have to use our quotations because we're inserting text. And we go ahead and click OK. And we see that Boulder, Colorado, store number 109, has greater revenue than the 375. And because we pointed to a named range, we can go ahead and copy this down. And in this case, I am just going to grab it and copy it. And we have all these yeses here. Now, for aesthetic reasons, I'm going to go here to the home button and I'm going to center this so that the yeses are centered instead of being left justified. Okay? And the blanks are no's. Okay? So we've actually done step number 2. Step number 3 is we're going to fill out this sales revenue summary table down here. And we got to understand that a lot of times when we say table like this, and in the real world when someone says build a table or insert this in a table, they're not meaning convert a structured range into a table. They're just meaning we don't have a good name for it. I'm not going to say, go down here to the structured range of sales revenue summary. We're going to say go down and fill in the table, okay, or the chart. Yeah, but we're not asking you to convert this to a table, okay? But that's just what we're calling it. So in the sales summary revenue table, starting in cell L17, enter or use a SUMIF formula function to display the total revenue for each state. Use the name ranges, sales revenue, and states in the formula, because on your exam, it's going to sometimes ask you to use a named range. So it's very simple. In L17, we're going to put our cursor there. It's equals, and we're going to use the SUMIF formula. And what's great is you see this pop up right here, and I always click on it, and it's going to ask us 3 things here. It's going to ask us the range, the criteria, and the sum range. So we have to get used to what each of these are. And the range in this case is states. Okay. And we click on that, and comma, the criteria is we're going to point to K17. We're going to point to Colorado. Now, sometimes you'll see where you could just type in Colorado. You can do this. Okay. But the reason why I don't do that is then I can't copy this formula down, because if I copy it down, it's going to point back to Colorado. But I can point to the cell K17 for Colorado, and what range is it bringing back? So the question is, bring back the sales revenue. Okay, so the revenue range, column D, and I can highlight this if I so choose. And if I do, you see I've already named the ranges for us as sales revenue, and go ahead and close that up and click enter. And we see that Colorado has 5,526,000 in revenue. Okay. And now, because I've used name ranges and I've pointed, when I copy this down, and I'll click on that formula, notice now that as I copied it down from Colorado to New Mexico. So now it's pointing to K18, and if I go here to Wyoming, it's pointing to K19. But because we put in states, it's always going back here to the state, and the purple sales revenue is going back to column D. Okay? Because those names have been, those ranges have been named. Now, here's something that I do when I'm dealing with spreadsheets. How do I know if this information is correct? Yes, I'm trusting Excel, but I'm going to verify it, because what if I misnamed the range or something like that? So I'm going to come here and just sum this column. And you can use the sum function, or you can come right up here to the home screen, or on the formula screen, you have auto sum there, or on the home screen, you have this sum button, which is this sigma sum. And just click it, and it says our total revenue is $10,714,000. Well, I'm going to come here in column D, starting in D3, and I'm going to come all the way down here to the totals and leave that space, and I'm going to sum it. And you see that I have gotten these number signs. And it's like, oh, there's an error. These number signs, all they're telling you is that there's more data in the cell, in the width of this cell, than the cell width is. So we've seen this before. I can go between D and E and double click, and now it widens that, and we can see that that these equal. So we did it correctly. Okay, we finished number 3. Number 4 is we're going to use the COUNTIF. So different than the count function, which is we're just going to count everything. We're going to count this based on a condition. So starting in cell M17, enter a formula that displays the number of stores in each state using the name range states in the formula. So very simple. It's not going to ask us two things like we did before. It's asking us the range, and then the criteria, and then the sum range. This is very simple. It's just going to ask us two things: COUNTIF, and it's asking us the range. In this case, it's states. Okay, and we're just going to point now, comma, and we're going to point to the state K17, and we have 11 franchises. And I can copy this down. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sum that after I copy it. We see that we have 21. I'll just center that text just so it looks appropriate. And now I'm going to come here, and under column B, I can't just come and do a sum here because it's going to give us an error. Okay, escape. I can't just sum this. And I just can't do a regular count, because if you remember last time, count counts numbers. So if you remember, we will use a count A function. So equals count A. And it's asking for the values, and we're just going to start here, and I'm just going to drag B3 all the way down to B23 and just click enter, and we see that we have 21 there, and I'm going to center that, and we can see that we've done both of these correctly. Okay. The last thing that it's going to ask us right here on this is, starting in cell N17, enter a formula that displays the average sales revenue from the stores in each state. So obviously we're going to use equals, and instead of average, it's going to be AVERAGEIF. And notice that there's average A, average if, and average ifs. We're going to talk about, so on your exam, you're not using ifs function for this one. For your expert certification, you will use the ifs function, which is multiple criteria. In this case, it's just two criteria: the state and what we're averaging. So we got the criteria is state, you got to point to the state, and then we're taking an average in that state. So AVERAGEIF, again, it's asking for our range. What's great about Excel is it tells us right here what we need to be doing. So we're the AVERAGEIF formula. We're working on our range. Okay, our range again is states. Okay. Our criteria is we're going to point to this Colorado, so we can copy it down. Okay, you can always type it in, but I suggest we don't do that. And we're looking at the sales revenue, okay, because that's what we want to know, the average of the sales revenue. And this gets 502,405. And before I copy this down, when we're dealing with revenue and money, we're not going to go out 4 decimal points because we don't do that. So I'm going to come here. If you're not in the home screen, click on the home screen, and just click on this $sign. That's a accounting format. So it gives us our $sign, and it goes out 2 decimal points and adds our comma. So it's much easier to read. And then I'm just going to copy that down. In this case, we can't do an average of the average. It won't give us the correct information here. So in this case, I won't do a verification on that. So that's it for this assignment. We learned how to do just an ifs function here. Then we did a SUMIF function, a COUNTIF function, and we also did an AVERAGEIF function. We practiced again with a COUNTA function too, and we did some sorting. For those of you that are just working on your MOS 200 certification, thank you for joining us. And for those of you that are in Management 1400, you should know the drill by now. Go ahead and save this file, adding your last name, first name, and then uploading it to the corresponding assignments page. Thank you very much.